Hi everybody, it's Cash. Welcome back. Thank you very much for joining me. This is a follow-up to a video I made the other day about A Course in Miracles. If you didn't see it, I'll put a link to it in the show notes below this one. But afterwards, many people wrote and said, would you give us progress reports? Let us know how you're faring with the text. It's complicated. It takes some study and a lot of absorption and concentration. But I'm allotting about 30 minutes per day to doing it. And people said, would you give us a progress report? Other people said, were you aware that early copies of the book contain samples of Helen Shucman's handwriting? And would you analyze those? Helen Shucman channeled A Course in Miracles. She heard a voice inside and believed it was the voice of Jesus. And over 7 years, she took dictation from this voice, and that became the book. And so I got some of the handwriting and I analysed that, and I'll tell you what that is later on. But having read now the introduction to the book and also the first chapter, I was struck by a couple of things. First of all, there's a reason I was not able to read A Course in Miracles many years ago. People suggested it. I went to a bookstore to look at it, and when I opened it, it was essentially gobbledygook to me. It was so heavy and so intense, and I put it back and thought, this is not for me. And I think the reason for that is that I had a number of books to write myself based on my own intuition, my own experience, my own channeling possibly. And until I'd done those and developed my own thought structure around what might be the truth of universal law and universal principles, until I'd done that, I couldn't read A Course in Miracles, in case my own work seemed like it was derivative of A Course in Miracles. And it struck me how similar what I'm reading is to some of my own work, meaning that there must be a good deal of truth in both. But on top of that, I was struck by how some of the language in A Course in Miracles, at least the part I've read so far, is very similar to the vocabulary of Christian Science. Now, this may not be that surprising, given that Helen Shucman's mother, although this was a half-Jewish family, I think, her mother was very open to a lot of different modalities and belief systems and so on, and she studied Christian Science for a time. I don't know how long, but for a time. So some of the language in A Course in Miracles seems derivative from there. What's interesting is that my father was a Christian Scientist to the day he died. He every day read Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. And so I was raised as a Christian Scientist, even though I am not one now and really don't know the principles very well anymore. But my father certainly was a Christian Scientist right to the very end. Mary Baker Eddy's transition is here on the channel. You can go and look at that. I'll put a link to that below as well, actually, because she had one of the toughest transitions I have ever done. In life, she was known as quarrelsome, very stubborn and willful, with Victorian values that she invested in Christian Science. It was written in the late 19th century. The final version of it, after she'd tweaked it a lot, came out in 1910, and there were accusations all the way down the line that she plagiarized it from a guy called Phineas Quimby, who was a hypnotist who came up with the idea that Jesus healed with the power of suggestion. So Christian Science is basically all about healing and the power of suggestion and the use of what she called divine mind to heal the human body. I interviewed a guy on my podcast many years ago called Don Ingwerson, who was a Christian Science practitioner. He explained how it worked. If you want to listen to that, it's ages old, and I haven't heard it in a while, but I'll put a link to that in the show notes too, because I know that was very helpful at the time to a lot of people, and certainly explained to me how Christian Science worked. So I found in my belongings this copy of Science and Health It's very old. I think the final version of Science and Health was 1910, and this might be like 1928. It smells like a musty attic, and it's falling apart. But I don't know how I came by this, actually, but I had it in my possession. So I was able to get the energy from this, I thought, and if I just put my hand inside it, the way I did with A Course in Miracles, I might get insights into what Christian Science was really about and what Mary Baker Eddy was really about. So I thought I would test the energy of this now and just put my hand inside it, and let's see what comes. What is the energy of Science and Health by Mary Baker Eddy? I see a needle and thread. Oh, and the needle and thread is coming up between the fingers of my hand. It goes over one finger, then back down into the book again. Then out of the book and over the next finger, and back down into the book again. Then over the... Oh! And it's doing that again. Oh, it does that twice. It does that twice. So my fingers are actually now, I don't know if they're my fingers, but the fingers that I see are actually stuck to the book. Oh, it's almost cultish. I think Christian Science has been called a cult before because of its rigid adherence to the words of its leader, Mary Baker Eddy. But this feels almost cultish, like, no, 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 you will do what I say. You will believe what I believe. Oh, and now, and now the thread is being pulled tighter. I'm not drawing this. Oh, it's slicing through the flesh. This isn't my physical hand. It doesn't actually hurt, but you can imagine that hurting. It's like a cheese wire going through all the different... Yike. That's what happened with A Course in Miracles. Do you remember I said I saw an X-ray of my hand? Oh, how interesting. As though we are just bones and everything else is spiritual. Yeah, it has that in common with A Course in Miracles. That we're just skeletons walking around in a thick soup of spirituality, of cosmic forces. And so, according to the beliefs of Christian Science, if the physical, if the matter becomes ill, that's simply an error of thinking. As a reflection of the divine, you are perfect, and if you are perfect, then your body is perfect, and it can be healed. And if it doesn't heal, it's because your thinking is erroneous. That was the principle that I remember. Something I found very, very useful was a book called I Am the Word by Paul Selig. I've mentioned it many, many times because this is a seminal work in my own life. I think I practice its principles every single day in some form, and it allows you to reclaim your sovereign power. And it's way more agreeable to me than something like Science and Health. Paul Selig was a playwright, or is a playwright, and also he taught playwriting at NYU. But he's also one of the most gifted channelers on the planet. And I Am the Word is a channeled book. When I went into the energy of I Am the Word, It was like I put my face into a rock pool. On the beach, when you find these rock pools, when the tide has gone out and all the water's in there, and you can see rocks and animals and stuff underneath and creatures. It was like that. Clear water that you put your face into, and you could see through the surface. There were little strands, glowing strands, swimming up towards me. These were the forces, the spirits speaking to him when he wrote that book. When we think of channeling, we think of voices from above or contact from the heavens. But this was like a look through to the other side, and we are surrounded by these forces that are trying to get through to us, to help us, to guide us. And I was amazed by that I Am the Word helps you go through to the other side and take in this information that will help you with your life. That's what I've always found. And it's one of the most important books I've ever read. In fact, I think it was nominated as one of the must-read books of all time, must-read spiritual books. So I do recommend that even now. And that brings us to A Course in Miracles, which features certain hues and flavours, at least in the part that I've read, of Christian Science. And as I said, someone pointed out that certain versions of A Course in Miracles feature Helen Shucman's handwriting. And they said, would you take a look at that? And I did, and it was very surprising. It's almost like this is a different person to the one that I imagined writing the book, because it's an intensely switched on, truthful, I would say, book. It feels truthful, certainly from chapter 1. It resonates with me and what I've believed for a very long time. And Helen Shucman doesn't necessarily feel like the kind of person who wrote that book. So maybe it was channeled by her from Jesus. But this is what the handwriting said about her. She was sharp-tongued when she spoke, and somewhat defensive when it came to people probing her or trying to see beyond her chosen facade. Her personality could be muted and internalized, at least until she trusted you. Influences from her past were an extremely strong factor in her thinking, and she found she couldn't push past them, though I'm not sure she even wanted to. Some things, perspectives, perceptions, standards and values were highly ingrained. Why bother putting in the effort to change them, really? As a result, the terms of intellectual engagement were set in place before she even met someone. She was a skilled and passionate communicator when expressing to others what she thought and believed, and wouldn't be easy to argue with or contradict, simply because her perceptions of what was right and true were rock solid. The behaviour and attitudes of other people dismayed her, sometimes leaving her with feelings of defeat. What do you do? How can you help these people, really, when they won't help themselves? That kind of thing. Her defences protected her from the worst of it. She was intelligent, methodical, committed in her endeavours, and far-seeing, with an inbred desire to lift others up and champion their cause if she felt they deserved it. So most of the time, and if you were on her right side, she'd be absolutely fine and probably a pleasure to engage with. She was also pretty self-actualizing, with a fear of interference from others, which is what I said earlier, with a fear of interference from others, and a thank you, but I really don't need your help or attention attitude, which actually helped her duck scrutiny from the wrong quarters. So, yeah, I'm good. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Enough. And she would go her own way. It's almost as if she really did fear attack, or being eaten alive by those she didn't see eye to eye with. That suggested insecurity, really, actually, more than anything else. She didn't want to engage too much in case she was found out to be wrong or challenged too strongly. It's almost like I said here, she could dish it out but not take it, especially when she believed she was right, which I think she did a lot, and others were just plain wrong. Left to her own devices, she was determined, ruminative, sincere in her self-expression, ambitious in her aims, and someone who leaned towards the intellectual first before engaging the heart. That reflects Christian Science as well. She approached concepts in a high-handed way, allowing incoming data to be filtered and to take shape through her perceptions, before deigning to take it on board as something she could accept and work with. Her mind was a factory for ideas. She was open to new ones, but was quick to reject those that didn't fit in with her worldview. Her antenna, though, was always up, anticipating possible threats to her vulnerability. She seemed quite fearful of what might happen, fearful of the future, fearful of being attacked, fearful of people rounding on her and overriding her arguments or countermanding her authority. In fact, I would say these two, her vulnerability and her fears, lurked constantly beneath her outer shell. She was quite sensitive and would show this to those she felt were her equals. Otherwise, she would guard her heart quite fiercely, and possibly guard yours as well when she cared about you. She was very specific, though, about whom she was interested in and why. If you fell outside her selected circle, she could let you pass right by. Appeal to her sensibilities, however, and she would glom right onto you and be concerned about you. She seems like she was aware of her own abilities, her mental agility and skills, and used them formidably, like Mary Baker Eddy, while clinging tightly onto her methodology or beliefs. It was like a boxer punching with the right hand while protecting his face with the left. She appeared on the surface to have ample patience with people and a readiness to countenance all kinds of fresh ideas. But behind that facade, again the facade, lay a simmering impatience with certain types of people or arguments or situations or subjects. This impatience, as far as I could tell from the writing, was always there, but held in, contained. Perhaps the public display was more important at that particular time in her life. My guess is that it would probably burst out now and then, when she could no longer take people's stupidity or incompetence, and that's when she would be fierce. If you had something she liked or wanted, or if you had something she found attractive and interesting, she would move in to consume you, or to consume it, hoping you'd spill all the beans and she could learn from it. She was voracious in her appetite for learning in that way. But she was complicated, so nothing I say would apply universally to all aspects of her life. She liked to understand the parameters she was working within, but at the same time found these parameters limiting and oppressive. They dragged her down and made her feel hemmed in. People's limited vision or unwillingness to understand or to take her word for it, whatever it was a source of frustration. Weirdly, all of this, though, was a skewed projection of her own stubbornness and her own unwillingness to fully explain her thought processes before speaking or letting you know her opinions. She just told you. She just directed her energy at you and communicated well, but it was coming right at you, and you may not always know where it was coming from. She was intriguing in that way, somewhat enigmatic, giving with one hand, taking with the other, fighting with one hand, protecting herself with the other. She was creative, imaginative, complex, optimistic about the world and life to a certain extent, and somewhat self-contained. So she was sort of fearful yet optimistic. As long as she had control of things and knew where everything was going and could defend herself against the unexpected, then she was fine and optimistic. But she was self-contained, often standing back and appraising situations in order to process them while other people around her just went about their lives. Her mental motor was always turning over. She was always watching, always considering, always processing, while other people around her just carried on doing what they were doing. This gave her a healthy distance that she enjoyed and needed for the ruminations, I suppose. She may have loved the idea of life's possibilities, but at the same time felt weighed down by them, or by the way other folk reacted and behaved. Her standards soared above theirs, as did her expectations, comprehension, perspicacity, and her readiness to pass on what she knew and what she'd learned. So again, like Mary Baker Eddy, a formidable woman who was so sure of certain things in life. But underneath there was fear. Maybe that's why A Course in Miracles is so dense and so professorial. It is something that you study, something that you process with your mind, the same as science and health. Mary Baker Eddy just analysed. I don't know that she felt very much. It was simply an analysis of the Bible and of the theories about healing that she got from Phineas Quimby. And when Don Ingwerson, the Christian Science practitioner I interviewed on my podcast, explained how it works, the healing in Christian Science, which is kind of what they're known for, when he explained it, 10,000 light bulbs went off in my head. It explains so much of what I'd learned when I was a child going to Sunday school. Because we are way more powerful than we know. Our connection to the divine is phenomenal. We just let our ego get in the way. Our physicality get in the way. The skeleton, the bones get in the way. When all we have to do is alter our perception from earth-based mortal restrictions to infinite divine potential and possibilities. That's what A Course in Miracles seems to be about, altering that perception. And that's what I got actually from I Am the Word. Looking into the water and seeing these energies moving around. They're the ones that are guarding and guiding us all the time. They're in the soup out there, the spiritual soup. We just can't see them because they're at a higher frequency, but they're there, and they're there to be used for growth and a movement towards wholeness and healing. All we got to do is submit, surrender, tap into that, look through the surface of the water to what lies beneath. And if it's A Course in Miracles helps us do that, great. If it's Christian Science, great. If it's Paul Selig and his work, great. Whatever gets you there, I think. But it's not about learning as such. It's not about acquiring knowledge or skills or techniques. It's about sitting back like you would in a comfortable armchair on a chilly winter's day with a blanket over you and a mug of hot chocolate, whatever it is, in your hand, allowing yourself to feel that reassurance, that comfort, that sense of not being separate from the universe, separate from God, being a part of it. Let your bones rest in the chair, but surrender to all the forces that are around you, that are trying to help you move towards your greatest good. But these are all building blocks, whether it is Christian Science or channeling by Paul Selig or A Course in Miracles. They're all just building blocks to help you find your spiritual self, your sovereign divine self, your Christ self, and move out of the mortal into the spiritual. Absolutely fascinating. Alrighty, that's all I got today, but thank you so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. I'll be back soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.